This past weekend, cities across the UK saw a wave of arrests tied to pro-Palestinian protests. Over 70 people were detained in London, Manchester, and Cardiff, marking the first major test of a new law banning the activist group Palestine Action. The government recently labeled Palestine Action a terrorist organization, making public support for the group a criminal offense. Most of those arrested were not accused of violence, but of holding signs or chanting slogans in support of the banned group. The new law has blurred the line between protest and criminality, sparking fierce debate about free speech and democracy. Among those arrested were healthcare workers, students, and even a priest, people who say they're acting out of moral duty to oppose the UK's support for Israel. The controversy raises urgent questions. Is this a necessary step for national security, or a dangerous overreach that threatens the right to protest? In this video, we'll break down the arrests, the law behind them, and what they mean for democracy in the UK. The arrests took place on July 12, 2025, in a sweeping operation that spanned three major UK cities: London, Manchester, and Cardiff. This coordinated action was part of a larger nationwide crackdown that unfolded over the course of a single day, sending shockwaves through communities across the country. London saw the largest number of arrests, with 42 people detained in total, 41 accused of supporting a newly banned group, and one charged with common assault. The scale of the police response in the capital was unprecedented, with officers deployed in large numbers to monitor and break up gatherings. In Manchester, police arrested 16 individuals, all under the Terrorism Act, while in Cardiff, 13 people were detained for similar alleged offenses. The simultaneous operations in these cities highlighted the government's determination to enforce the new law without exception. This was not a series of isolated incidents, but a carefully coordinated nationwide enforcement of the new ban, involving multiple police forces working together. Those arrested weren't just seasoned activists or well-known organizers. Among them were students, working professionals, and even older citizens who had never been involved in protests before. The crackdown swept up people from all walks of life, reflecting the broad reach of the new legislation. Some were detained simply for holding placards with messages like, "I oppose genocide," or for wearing clothing that displayed the group's logo. Even small symbolic acts of protest were enough to trigger arrest under the new rules. The legal basis for these arrests lies in the Terrorism Act, which now makes it a serious criminal offense to support a prescribed group, even in a symbolic or non-violent way. Police cited this law as they read rights and processed detainees. In the days leading up to the protests, police had issued clear warnings. Any public show of support for Palestine Action, no matter how peaceful, would be met with immediate arrest and prosecution. What was once considered an ordinary act of protest, marching, chanting, or holding a sign, has now been reclassified as a terrorism-related crime, fundamentally changing the landscape of public dissent in the UK. The diversity of those arrested, from teenagers to pensioners, shows just how far-reaching and indiscriminate the law's impact has become, touching people who never imagined they'd be caught up in such events. The government's decision to ban Palestine Action overnight instantly criminalized a wide range of protest activity, leaving many confused and fearful about what is now considered illegal. The result is a chilling effect on free expression and protest across the UK, as people now think twice before speaking out or joining demonstrations, unsure of where the new boundaries lie. On July 5, 2025, the UK government made a landmark decision by officially banning Palestine Action, adding the activist group to its official list of terrorist organizations under the Terrorism Act 2000. This unprecedented move made it a criminal offense to belong to, support, or even publicly display the group's name or logo in any form. The penalty is severe, up to 14 years in prison for anyone found guilty of public support or association. Palestine Action is known for its bold and disruptive direct action campaigns, targeting companies accused of supplying arms to Israel, often through acts of property damage and blockades. Their tactics include media group, protesters spray painting building, activists breaking into factory, smashed industrial equipment at stock at distribute_equally, breaking into factories, spray painting buildings, and smashing industrial equipment. But notably, they have never targeted or harmed people. The ban is highly controversial because it marks the first time the UK has prescribed a group primarily for property damage, rather than violence against individuals. Critics argue that while Palestine Action's methods are illegal, Labeling them as terrorists is a dangerous escalation that blurs the line between protest and terrorism. The new law now treats even expressions of support, such as sharing a post or holding a sign, as criminal acts, fundamentally changing the rules of protest around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the UK. Civil liberties groups warn that this sets a dangerous precedent, making it easier for the government to ban other disruptive protest groups in the future, regardless of whether they use violence. The government, however, insists the ban is strictly about protecting national security and public order, not about silencing political dissent or protest. But the debate over what truly counts as terrorism and what should be protected as protest has never been sharper or more divisive in the UK. The new law has redefined the boundaries of protest in the UK, raising urgent questions about the future of activism, free speech, and civil liberties. The ban on Palestine Action was triggered by a dramatic incident in June 2025. Activists breached security at RAF Bryce Norton, a major military base, and vandalized 2 Voyager aircraft with red paint. The planes, used for military transport and refueling, suffered damage estimated at £7 million. The activists claimed the planes were part of the UK's support for Israel's military. Authorities saw this as a direct attack on national defense infrastructure, not just protest. 4 people were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit criminal damage. For the government, this was the final straw, proof that Palestine Action's tactics had escalated. The incident was used to justify the group's prescription under anti-terror laws. The government argued the act was designed to intimidate and influence policy through serious property damage. This event shifted the debate, framing Palestine Action as a threat to national security. The RAF base incident became the cornerstone of the government's case for the ban. On the day of the arrests, protesters gathered in London's Parliament Square, a site loaded with historical symbolism and a long tradition of public dissent. The square, nestled in the heart of Westminster, has witnessed countless demonstrations over the decades, making it a powerful backdrop for the events that unfolded. Surrounded by statues of figures like Mandela and Gandhi, the demonstrators drew inspiration from these icons of resistance, drawing clear parallels between their own cause and the global struggles for justice and equality that these leaders represent. Organized by Defend Our Juries, the protest featured banners reading, "I oppose genocide," and "I support Palestine Action." The crowd's signs and chants echoed a call for solidarity, urging passers-by to pay attention to the unfolding crisis and the right to speak out. The message was clear: challenge the new law and assert the right to free speech. Protesters used megaphones and passionate speeches to rally support, emphasizing the importance of defending civil liberties in the face of tightening restrictions. Police responded swiftly, cordoning off the area, searching bags, and confiscating anything linked to Palestine Action. Their presence was immediate and highly visible, signaling a zero-tolerance approach to any perceived breach of the new laws. Videos showed tense standoffs and demonstrators being carried away by officers. The atmosphere grew increasingly charged as police and protesters faced off, each side determined to stand their ground. The atmosphere shifted rapidly from peaceful protest to mass arrests, as the police moved in to disperse the crowd and detain those defying the ban. Similar scenes played out in Manchester and Cardiff, with police enforcing a zero-tolerance approach. Across the country, the crackdown was coordinated and forceful, leaving little doubt about the government's intent. Public warnings had made it clear: any show of support for the banned group would lead to arrest. Police used loudspeakers and signs to remind demonstrators of the new legal boundaries, heightening the sense of risk. For protesters, this was a crackdown on dissent. For police, it was law enforcement. The two sides viewed the confrontation through very different lenses, each convinced of the rightness of their actions. The events highlighted the new reality for protest in the UK. Demonstrators now face a landscape where the cost of speaking out has never been higher, and the consequences are immediate. The state's response was uncompromising, leaving little room for ambiguity. The message from authorities was unmistakable: protest would be met with force and swift legal action. The right to protest now comes with unprecedented legal risk, and for many the question remains: how far are people willing to go to defend their freedoms in this new era? The government frames the ban and arrests as essential for national security. Officials argue that actions like the RAF base breach go beyond protest. They're attacks on the state's ability to defend itself. The Home Secretary insists Palestine Action's activities meet the legal definition of terrorism, which includes serious disruption to infrastructure. The government says it's not banning protest about Gaza, but draws a hard line at supporting a proscribed group. For them, this is about upholding the law and protecting public order, not silencing dissent. Critics, including human rights groups and legal experts, call the ban a dangerous overreach. They argue that criminal damage should be prosecuted through regular courts, not anti-terror laws. The fear: this sets a precedent for banning disruptive but non-violent protest groups, chilling dissent. Supporters of Palestine Action say the ban is a political tool to silence criticism of UK foreign policy. The debate now centers on whether the government is protecting security or eroding democracy. The protests are a direct response to the war in Gaza, which began after Hamas's attack on Israel in October 2023. Israel's military response has caused tens of thousands of deaths, mostly civilians, and a humanitarian crisis. The UK's arms sales and political support for Israel have fueled outrage among protesters. South Africa has accused Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice, intensifying global scrutiny. Protesters in the UK see their actions as a moral imperative to oppose their government's complicity. The ban on Palestine Action is viewed as an attempt to silence calls for a ceasefire and accountability. The war's devastation is the backdrop for the UK's protest movement. The government's crackdown is seen by many as an effort to shield itself from criticism. The arrests have ignited a national debate about protest, security, and democracy. The government insists it's protecting the public and upholding the law, not targeting dissent. Civil liberties groups warn that using anti-terror laws against protest sets a dangerous precedent. The case of Palestine Action blurs the line between protest and terrorism, challenging traditional definitions. The controversy is about more than one group. It's about the future of protest in the UK. How much dissent will a democracy tolerate, especially when it challenges state policy? The answer will shape the country's democratic health for years to come. The UK now faces a defining test balancing security with the right to protest.